Hi, everybody. Good evening. हिंदी इंग्लिश दोनों में ही बात करेंगे. We will be starting soon. We are just waiting for number of people to join, and we'll start in like 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you. हाय एवरीबॉडी. सभी को वेलकम. लोग जुड़ रहे हैं हमारे साथ. थोड़े समय में हम लोग स्टार्ट करेंगे. ठीक है. थैंक यू. थोड़ा पेशेंस के लिए रिक्वेस्ट करूँ. Hello, everybody. Hi, good evening. Thank you to all of you for joining us in the evening. My name is Shotrik, part of Kijan Samvad, and happy to announce that both our speakers are here. We will just wait for another 5 to 10 minutes, and we will start. हम लोग 5 से 10 मिनट में चालू करेंगे. और ये लाइव स्ट्रीम हो रहा है, और अगर किसी को अपना वीडियो ऑनलाइन रखना है, कुछ बोलना है, आप लोग फिलहाल बोल सकते हैं बिफोर आई ऑफिशियली गो फॉर द इंट्रोडक्शंस. ठीक है. विल स्टार्ट इन अराउंड 7:05. वी विल स्टिक टू द शेड्यूल. थैंक यू. Hi, good evening, everybody. I will speak both in English and Hindi, so it's a little bit more accommodative, or I can stick to one of the languages. That is also. I'm requesting our both speakers, if they're here, to just switch on the video if it's possible. Professor Dasgupta and Professor Mukhopadhyay. I hope I'm audible to you. Yes, Shomik sir. Hello.
You're audible. You don't have to call me sir. You're audible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Hi. Hi, Professor.
Do I need to
Uh,
keep the video on throughout, or can I switch it off now?
you can switch it off for
Okay.
now. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No
I'll switch it on
issues.
when I'm speaking. Otherwise, I don't
Sure.
switch it. Okay.
Sure. Yes. Hello, Professor Mukhopadhyay. Are you
Hello.
audible?
Hi.
Yes.
Ha.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're completely audible to us. Thank you so much. Uh, we will take another few minutes to join. So requesting everybody, and I'm just giving a general overview of the session. Is that I will give a very short round of introduction about Jan Samvad, about this initiative, and then this session we are planning to have it till 8:30 approximately, not beyond that. So once the first part of the introduction is done, I will hand it over to the moderator, which is Akash. Akash is going to give a short context of the overview, why this discussion is happening, the relevance of it, and then we will hand it over to both our speakers. We'll start with you, Shobik sir, and then we'll go to Shamik sir. Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just switching off the video at present.
No
Right.
problems. Yeah, we will start at 7:10 sharp.
Oh,
Hi, so we are starting. So I will preferably stick to the bilingual discussion and mode of communication, English and Hindi, because I hope सभी ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग दोनों में कंफर्टेबल होंगे इधर जो ज्वाइन किए हैं और सभी को नमस्कार and thank you for joining us in the evening today. I know it's a Sunday and all of you have made your time to be part of us, and also if anybody has also joined on the YouTube link, so that is a first for us, and thank you for that. So, Jan Samvad, I would like to give a short introduction about Jan Samvad. So, where it came from, and I would also request our members who were part of the first inception idea, which is Abdut and Tushar, if they're there, Yash, if you're there, Akash, if you're there, to please switch on the video once and show your faces. And also the larger people who are already part of the community, if you can also show your faces, that would be great. So, everybody knows. Yeah. So, जन संवाद was basically conceived as an idea. इस विचार से हम लोगों ने सोचा था कि समाज में कई जो सिचुएशंस एंड इश्यूज हो रही है, पॉलिटिकल इश्यूज एंड इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज एंड इनका जो ओवरलैप हो रहा है, इन सब चीजों को लेके बात करने के लिए स्पेसेस काफी रेस्ट्रिक्टेड होते जा रहे हैं। सिविल सोसाइटी पे काफी दबाव है, मीडिया पे काफी प्रेशर है, और मैं अभी मोडालिटीज पे नहीं जाऊंगा। मुझे लगता है जो लोग यहाँ पे आए हैं, हमसे जुड़े हैं, काफी लोगों को इन चीजों के बारे में पता होगा। बट ये जो श्रिंकिंग स्पेसेस हैं, यहाँ पे आम आदमी, एवरीडे इंडिविजुअल जो इंसान है जो जूझता है इन चीजों के लिए, उसके लिए इन चीजों के बारे में अपनी बातचीत रखना, इन चीजों के बारे में समझना, इसके बारे में सोच विचार करना, ये काफी मुश्किल होता गया है ओवर द फ्यू इयर्स। और सभी लोग शायद पॉलिटिकली उस हिसाब से एंगेज नहीं होते हैं, और इसलिए स्पेसेस रेस्ट्रिक्टेड है। तो इसी चीज को मद्देनजर रखते हुए आकाश ने हम सबसे ये आइडिया डिस्कस किया था एक समय पे, और फिर सभी ने, हम लोगों ने एक साथ आके एफर्ट डाला था कि क्या एक हम लोग ऐसा एक प्लेटफॉर्म बना पाए जहाँ पे एवरीडे इंडिविजुअल जो प्रोग्रेसिव हो, पॉलिटिकल हो, कोई भी बैकग्राउंड से आता हो, एक इंक्लूसिव स्पेस जहाँ पे at least every month we can have such conversations which are relevant to everyday world, जो राजनीति, इकोनॉमी, आए दिन जो चीज हो रहे हैं हमारे आसपास, उन चीजों के बारे में हम लोग अपनी बातचीत रखें, सोच विचार रखें, उन पे चर्चा कर पाए, और चर्चा करते हुए उनके बारे में हम लोग सोचें, और ऐसे कुछ सेशंस करें जहाँ पे हम लोग एक्सपर्ट्स या स्पीकर्स को ऐसे लेके आ पाए, जैसे हमारे प्रोफेसर आज जुड़े हैं जो दोनों एक्सपर्ट्स हैं अपने फील्ड पे, जो इन चीजों के बारे में बातचीत आगे कर पाए, और उसके बारे में हम लोग और डिस्कशंस कर पाए और सोच विचार कर पाए, और इस चीज को एक प्लेटफॉर्म देना, और वहीं से द कंसेप्शन ऑफ जन संवाद बेसिकली केम इन। और उसी के लिए आज का ये डिस्कशन हम लोग ऑर्गेनाइज किए हैं। हमारे इस डिस्कशन को मॉडरेट करने के लिए आकाश को मैं बुलाना चाहूंगा, और उसके लिए अगर तुषार एंड अवधूत हमसे जुड़े हैं, मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा अगर आप लोग एक बार अपना 2 मिनट के लिए अगर हो सके तो कैमरा ऑन करें, और अगर आप लोग कुछ जोड़ना चाहते हैं, अगर मैंने कुछ मिस किया है तो प्लीज जोड़।
नहीं, थैंक यू श्रोत्रिक। आई थिंक आपने काफी चीजें कवर की, और मैं एक्चुअली रास्ते पे हूँ, तो इसलिए आई विल बी कीपिंग माय वीडियो ऑफ, बट या रियली लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू हियरिंग बोथ आर स्पीकर्स एंड आल्सो हाउ आकाश सॉर्ट ऑफ टेक दिस फॉरवर्ड। एंड या आई मीन, जो आपने कहा, आई थिंक कोशिश यही है कि अलग अलग तरह के लोग थोड़ा यहाँ आए, और दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ बिकम्स लाइक एक इंक्यूबेशन वाली जगह, और एक ऑल्सो एक प्लेटफॉर्म जो लिंक करे अलग अलग लोग जो अलग अलग तरह के काम कर रहे हैं। सो या आई थिंक यू कवर्ड इट, सो थैंक्स।
तुषार।
Yeah, Shotrik. So yeah, you covered it pretty well. I don't have anything to add, but I would just say, so the conversations like this are very important और बहुत relevant भी है, क्योंकि जो टॉपिक जैसे हम उठा रहे हैं, जैसे पिछले बार भी हमने जो किया था और इस बार भी हम वॉर पे लेके बात कर रहे हैं, तो जनरली मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया में हो या इवन लाइक पैरेलल मीडिया में भी इस पे इतना बात होता नहीं है, अल्टरनेटिव स्पेसेस में भी। So I feel, yeah, this will remain a space where we talk about all the things that usually don't get talk in mainstream media. So yeah.
Yeah, so before I hand it over to Akash, so this is our third session, if I'm remembering correctly. The second session was Akash, if you can mute once. I think this is. Yeah, so this is our third session. We could actually organize one session physically in person, and we look forward to having it more physically, मतलब ताकि सब लोग एक साथ जुड़ पाए. बट स्पेशल प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं, कोई दिल्ली में है, कोई कलकत्ता में है, तो एक साथ जोड़ने के लिए कोशिश यही रहती है कि हम लोग ऑनलाइन भी कर पाए. और इसीलिए इस बार से हम लोगों ने थोड़ा मेहनत करके इसको यूट्यूब पे भी डालने की कोशिश की है, ताकि एक कॉन्वर्सेशन का स्पेस ऑर्गेनिकली बढ़ते रहे और ये जगह भी हमारे साथ बढ़ते रहे. और हमारा एक छोटा सा ग्रुप है जो हम लोग ऑपरेट करते हैं, और अगर आप लोग हमारे साथ जो और भी जुड़ना चाहते हैं तो मोस्ट वेलकम. एंड बस आई विल क्लोज माय इंट्रोडक्शन विद दिस. आई विल हैंड इट ओवर टू आकाश फॉर द कॉन्टेक्स्ट सेटिंग एंड द डिस्कशन. थैंक यू.
थैंक यू शौत्रिक एंड तुषार एंड अवधूत. याश भी हमारे साथ जुड़े थे when we started this, but I don't think he's been able to join us yet. As Shotrik outlined, there was a context to starting Jansamvad, that overall समाज में डेमोक्रेटिक स्पेस, डेमोक्रेटिक आइडियाज को लेके बातचीत के स्पेस कम होते जा रहे हैं. देखिए, एक दौर ऐसा रहा जिस दौर में मैं यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ा, प्रोफेसर शौमिक दासगुप्त तो मेरे साथ थे जेएनयू में या और भी कोई यूनिवर्सिटीज में, when universities were a prime center. Now the deal is, see, first of all, those spaces in universities have decreased, but even if they remain to some extent important centers, ये जरूरी है कि डेमोक्रेटिक आइडियाज से बातचीत हम लोग यूनिवर्सिटीज के बियॉन्ड ले जाए, अलग अलग स्पेसेस में, शहरों के बीच, जहां भी हम हैं, हमारे प्रोफेशनल स्पेसेस में इन बातों को ले जाए. So we felt the need to build a wider platform which can connect various nodes of such dialogue. Actually, हम लोगों ने जब शुरू किया, we reached out to various study circles like Tagore Periyar Study Circle, ISCA, All India Independent Scheduled Caste Association. ऐसे कई संगठन हैं जो लोग इस तरह के स्पेसेस क्रिएट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. उनसे हमने बात किया कि let's do it together. And the understanding was that we will connect on issues over a period of time. ऐसे कई लोग हैं जो इस तरह के स्पेसेस से जुड़े हैं और हमारे साथ भी जुड़े हैं. So the idea was to build a platform which can be a study circle with a public outreach. जहां तक political economy का सवाल है, see, this was particularly blatant over the last few years, जब हम given the challenges that we are facing of authoritarianism, एक बहुत ही एक्सट्रीम रिलीजियस पोलराइजेशन जो कि बहुत ही सिस्टमैटिक तरीके से हो रहा है, तो इन सब चीजों को टैकल करने के दौरान शायद कहीं ना कहीं पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी का कुछ कोर सवाल पॉलिटिकल डिस्कोर्स से हट रहा है. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट एम्प्लॉयमेंट, बट दैट्स जस्ट द टिप ऑफ द आइसबर्ग. A whole range of questions regarding the political economy of the state as it has shaped up over the last decade or so. क्रोनिक कैपिटलिज्म की बात होती है, बट जस्ट वी जस्ट टचिंग द टिप ऑफ द आइसबर्ग. तो खास करके पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी के सवाल पे हम बातचीत को आगे बढ़ाएंगे, ये सोच को लेके शुरू हुआ था. So the first two sessions, first one was on informal workers, second one was on the political economy of water, खास करके शहरों में. तो आज का जो सेशन है, हमने इसको कंसीव किया जब इंडिया पाकिस्तान के बीच कुछ चल रहा था. वो कुछ क्या है, वो उस पर बहस हो सकती है, वो जंग था कि नहीं था या सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक था, बट मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली we felt that there's a very constricted space to even have that conversation कि क्या है, ये किसके हित में है, who is taking the decisions, is the government answerable, to what extent, and so on and so forth. Similarly, on questions of India's equation with Israel, we felt that it's very centrally a political economy question, because जो हो रहा है इस अलायंस के चलते एक स्ट्रॉन्ग मिलिट्री इंडस्ट्रियल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ इंडिया इंटीग्रेट होता जा रहा है. यूएस, इजराइल, इंडिया मिलिट्री इंडस्ट्रियल कॉम्प्लेक्स. Corporates are profiting from it, whereas Indian workers are being sent to Israel to take the place of the Palestinian workers, which is unethical, which is immoral, which is very far from the original promise of employment generation, and so on. But instead of having a conversation on the political economy of war, we thought that the present situation of crisis demands something more than that. मतलब मोटे तौर पे कुछ बातें लोगों को पता है कॉर्पोरेट्स प्रॉफिट कर रहे हैं, मजदूरों को भेजा जा रहा है, बट कहीं ना कहीं एक डिस्कर्सिव स्पेस जो चाहिए इन चीजों पे गहराई में बात करने के लिए, दैट ब्रिंग्स अस टू द क्वेश्चन ऑफ आइडियाज, कि हम अगर कहीं ना कहीं वॉर को अपोज भी करें, एक जो प्रो पीस कोई पोजीशन भी ले, इसकी बेसिस क्या है? बिकॉज पब्लिक स्फीयर में ऐसी बात चल रही थी कि ये एक बहुत ही इम्प्रैक्टिकल चीज है, वॉर इज द ओनली सोल्यूशन नॉट जस्ट टू कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विद पाकिस्तान, बट इसराइल में जो चल रहा है पैलेस्टाइन के साथ, ईरान के साथ, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ। तो ये जो वॉर मॉन्गरिंग का एक माहौल है, इस माहौल में हमने सोचा कि देखिए हमारे इंडियन डेमोक्रेटिक ट्रेडिशंस के अंदर इन सवालों को लेकर जो बातचीत है उसको क्यों ना उजागर करें। इट्स टाइम टू ब्रिंग दैट आउट, not just talk about what is going on at the moment. We will talk about that maybe in future sessions, but there is a need to dig deep, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं ये जो बुनियाद है हमारे लोकतांत्रिक सोच की, जिस बुनियाद में रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर शामिल है, पेरियार, अंबेडकर, ये सब लोग शामिल है, उस बुनियाद को ही खत्म करने की एक कोशिश चल रही है। तो उस बुनियाद में वापस जाते हुए हम लोगों ने इस प्रोग्राम के बारे में सोचा। Very briefly, before I introduce the speakers, why Tagore and why Periyar? Rabindranath's positions on internationalism are fairly well known, that he refused to think within very constricted national boundaries. And that, I believe, is at the fundamental of what we are discussing right now. जब इस तरह के वार मॉन्गरिंग का एक माहौल बनता है, the nation comes to be defined in a very constricted manner. Or any contrary idea, I mean, a good example being that of Professor Ali Khan Mahmudabad. उन्होंने ऐसा क्या लिखा था कि उन पे FIR डल गया? It was not even an anti-war position. He just said that ठीक है, कॉर्नेल सोफिया कुरैशी को सामने रखा गया, वो अच्छी बात है, बट अगर आप सिर्फ वही करेंगे तो बहुत ही टोकनिस्टिक हो जाएगा, जबकि देश में मुसलमानों के साथ, आम मुसलमानों के साथ कुछ और हो रहा है. There is no space for saying even that. So there is a need to go back to ideas which talk not just about war and peace, but the basis of war and peace, which is national boundaries, national territorial boundaries, and Tagore's fundamental thought process about the need to think beyond narrow confines of the nation. इसमें जाने की जरूरत है. What was his thought process? How it is relevant for us now? इन सारे बातों को फिर से वापस लाने की जरूरत है. May I request all our guests to kindly mute their mics? Okay, that's about Tagore. And as far as Periyar is concerned, see, again, when you're looking at Periyar, we know of Periyar's social justice movements, his self-respect movement, but fundamentally at the heart of those movements was democratic conception of the nation, जहाँ पे national identity is premised on to what extent the individual and certain communities are empowered. तो national security के नाम पे या कुछ war mongering के नाम पे ये जो देश में कौन कितना बिलोंग कर रहा है, किसके सिटीजनशिप का स्टेटस क्या है, किसको कितना अधिकार मिल रहा है, कितना राइट्स मिल रहा है, इन सारी चीजों पे बातों को खत्म करने की जो साजिश चल रही है, I think Periyar stands strongly against that. And I should also mention at this moment that the idea of bringing together Periyar and Rabindranath Tagore takes me to the work of another thinker who is far more recent, who is not with us anymore, but who has this fantastic article on nations and nationalism, where he brings together Periyar and Rabindranath Tagore. And this is Professor M.S.S. Pandian. Professor M.S.S. Pandian, who passed away a few years ago, a decade ago, while he was teaching at Jawaharlal Nehru University. And some of us recalled that article, and we thought that maybe that's how we could pitch this and we could try and bring these two thinkers together. So that's what lies at the heart of this session. It's a fairly, informal session. हमें बस बातचीत करनी है. We want to bring the two thinkers in conversation, and as part of that, bring our two lead speakers in conversation. हमारे दो speakers आज के Professor Shobik Mukhopadhyay, who is a professor in the history department at Calcutta University, and Professor Shomik Dasgupta, who is a theatre practitioner and a scholar of theatre, and teaches at Ananda Chandra College, which is affiliated to North Bengal University. With that, I would like to hand over to Professor Shobik Mukhopadhyay to start off the session. Both of our speakers will speak for roughly 20-25 minutes, and then we can have an exchange between all of us. Language, unfortunately, we've not been able to arrange for translation. So the speakers could stick to English, or maybe use some Hindi or Bangla if they wish to. So we're not hard and fast on that. And yeah, as and when required, if anyone wants any part to be translated at the end of the speeches, we can always do that. One last thing before I start. We have 27 participants, and as I see, a lot of you are not part of Jan Samvad. So that's a fantastic thing that new people are joining us. Our rule is that after every session, we add new people to our WhatsApp group of Jan Samvad. So those who have joined for the first time, if by the end of the session you wish to be added to the group and be part of the planning of future sessions and take the platform forward in your own creative ways, then please drop your WhatsApp number on the chat box. You can also personally send it to either me or to Shotrik, and we will add you subsequently. Thank you very much. Over to you, Professor Shobhik Mukhopadhyay.
Thank you. Thank you, Akash. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. Just to start with, as you told that it will be a kind of informal discussion, I will keep myself very, very informal in that sense. Personally, I teach in Calcutta University, but my education was there in Vishwabharati, which was founded by Rabindranath Tagore in the year 1918. Formally, it was announced, and then it started functioning from possibly 1920 onwards. And the motto of Vishwabharati is Yatra Vishwam Bhavatyekranidam, where the world lives in a nest. So, Rabindranath, though he was a thinker, he was not a politician, he was not a statesman in that true sense, but uh, he, in his own inevitable manner, had tried to apply his ideas into action. Whatever he has thought, especially in the question of international cooperation, or say, for instance, the rural reconstruction, whatever he has thought, he had tried to apply it in action. In that sense, we can say that it was a philosophy of praxis. So, in 1918, Rabindranath establishes this international university. And the idea was, in the context of worldwide tensions and struggle, he had witnessed two world wars. He had seen World War I in its totality, and in 1941 he died when the Second World War was in full swing. Actually, it was on the ascendant with the Axis powers. They were in the victorious position. At that point of time, he leaves the world in a very saddened condition, and this is recorded in his address on his 80th birthday, which is known as, it is very famous text, Crisis in Civilization. In Bengali, it is Shobhotar Shankar. Acha. At this point, I will just tell that my presentation, though there is no scope for translation, it will be a bit of trilingual thing, because Rabindranath, to understand Rabindranath, it is necessary to read his Bengali poems, texts, because this is a very interesting thing that his writings in Bengali, they are so very nuanced, so very located in the Bengali context, in the Bengali culture, psyche. It is very, it is almost intranslatable in other languages. And in most of the cases, we find that the translations, they are inept, even when it is done by himself. It is quite inept and cannot express the nuances that is there in his Bengali writings. So I may be quoting sometimes his Bengali writings, and possibly it will get translated in future. With these words, as the time is very short, uh, just I missed the story that mm, the historians, they generally talk about stories. Uh, the kind of cooperation that we talk about, and the international cooperation that Rabindranath was visualizing, uh, it it is reflected in the life of an individual, a lady from Lithuania, Shlomit Flom. She was Jewish. She was from Lithuania. She came to know about Rabindranath when she attended one of the lectures of Rabindranath at synagogue when Rabindranath was visiting America in 1912. And she was so very attracted with the ideas and the personality of Rabindranath that she came to Shantiniketan, stayed there for almost 2 years, from 1922 up to 22, and then she returned back. She actually then went to Palestine. Uh, she was possibly of a Zionist persuasion, but she was very much wedded uh, with the teaching techniques of Rabindranath. So the pedagogic techniques of Rabindranath she took to Palestine, and then after the foundation of the Israeli state, she was there. She lived up to 1963. So these life stories, almost unknown. Now, this Shlomit Flom, she is almost forgotten identity or entity. Now, these kind of human beings, they actually made the world what actually Rabindranath was visualizing. With these words, I come directly to the framework of my presentation today. Firstly, it will be the framework, what actually Rabindranath was confronting with, and what was his answer to the context, to the situation that he was facing. And then I will make some extensive quotations from three of his writings, which covers the whole gamut of ideas that revolves around the concept of internationalism of Rabindranath. So, first, the framework. Rabindranath's vision of peace have to be seen against the backdrop of reckless violence, both within India and in the international level. Uh, as I told, that he witnessed two of the world wars, First World War in its entirety and Second World War in the initial stages. And he had reacted to these things, these wars, with his writings. Even his creative writings also reflect his ideas about this wanton destruction and the mindless destruction, or the towers of skulls that he visualizes, and the devil dance of destruction that Europe and the world witnessed. So, how he perceives this devil dance of destruction, why this destruction first coming at the first instance comes into being. There, his idea was, or his opinion or view or his perspective was, that this was a result of three intersecting or converging forces. One, that is the unmediated materialism of the modern society. Here, one should keep in mind that his position regarding the industrial society or the industrial world it is different from what Mahatma Gandhi had. So, unlike Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath did not completely do away with the industrial society. He recognized the importance of science and technology, but at the same time, he was of the opinion that the kind of industrialism or industrial society that has come into being in the Western world, especially in Europe, that is devoid of soul. And this is the reason behind the uh, acquisitive nature of the Western world, which is the source or the fountainhead of all these problems. So one can, in fact, draw a parallel between the kind of Marxist thinking of alienation and Rabindranath's view of this unmediated materialism, devoid of soul, which actually was the bane of the modern society. Number two, he points out the belligerent nationalism leading to the nationalist selfishness, chauvinism, and self-aggrandizement, which he thinks that was the reason behind this war. एक तो हम लोग रिच होना चाहते हैं, धनी होना चाहते हैं, दूसरा at the cost of others, and this is the reason why the whole world is fighting amongst each other, and the harmony between in the world, it is lost. Number three, he talks about the machinery of organized religion which obstructs free flow of inner life of the people and exploits it for the augmentation of its own power. So, at the very outset, we categorize three sets of issues or phenomena, which is identified by Rabindranath. One, unmediated materialism. Two, belligerent nationalism. And three, the machinery of the organized religion. Now, what was the poet's response? As I told that he was man of action, not only idea. So he was trying to implement these ideas in his own way, in a very nest-like fashion in Vishwabharati. But his response was creation of a global human community where the grand harmony of all human races would flower, and this will result by shunning exclusivism and dogmatism of all kinds. He also wanted fostering awareness that human beings are not only material and rational, but also moral and spiritual beings. And at the end, one can say that though at the very fag end of his life, he had become a bit pessimist, yet he was an incorrigible optimist. So, in the last address, that is the crisis in civilization, he is talking about the crumbling ruins strewn like a vast heap of futility, yet it would be grievous sin to lose faith in humanity. In Bengali, it is wonderfully stated as Manusher opor bishwas harano pap. So, despite all the destruction that he had seen in his life, yet at the end of his life, he was hopeful that one day this dance of destruction will come to an end and the human society, it will come back to the rails of construction, harmonious existence. Now, with these words, I will directly come to his works. apart from the creative writings, he had written extensively different essays and many addresses as well, lectures, addresses, where he had clearly stated his ideas. Now, as I told that most of them, they are written in quintessential Bengali, and it is very, very difficult to translate them. Sometimes he mm, tried to translate it himself. It was not up to the standard. So he asked for other peoples to chip in. Their efforts were also not very successful. And that's why the real ideas of Rabindranath was lost to the Western world to some extent. Now, the first thing that the mechanization of the Western civilization and the fetishization of money, matter, and machine, intense materialism, which was leading to the East West conflict, and smothering of the higher spirit of man, which you often find in individual. This he writes in his essay, International Goodwill, and this was published in a compendium, which was edited by Shishir Dash, Writings of Rabindranath, Volume 3, Miscellany. There, one can find these essays, which I will be quoting today. I have taken that from this book. And there he is stating that this Western civilization and the mechanization of the Western civilization, fetishization of money, etc., this is the real cause or the real reason why this struggle or the war is going on. And this mechanization, fetishization of money, this we can find if we go through his drama like Rakto Korobi, or the different poems or even songs what he had composed. There we find this idea of uh, uh, strident critique of soulless industrial growth, where the human being becomes the slave of machine. So this is the first point that I wanted to draw your attention to. Number two, the nationalist ideas, as Akash very rightly pointed out, that these things are quite well known. In Bengali, it is there. Nepal Mojumdar, he had worked extensively on this, and stupendous work in 5 volumes, Rabindranath Jatiyatavad and Antarjatikata. In that volume, we find his writings and the stages of the evolution of his idea. It is there. One should keep in mind that his critique of nationalism, it starts somewhere around, say, 1907-8 onwards. The icon of Swadeshi movement, the leader of the anti-partition, that is the first partition of Bengal in 1905, who had composed 16 poems or songs, which became almost like the slogan songs for that particular time, and out of which 3 have become national anthems for 3 different countries. One of India, Jana Gana Mana Odhinayaka, another of Bangladesh, and finally the translated version of Sri Lanka, the national anthem. All these were composed in a very short period of time, just after the declaration of the decision of the government, British Indian government, that is, they will be partitioning Bengal. Now, this man, who Ezra Pound says that sang the nation into being, she becomes a trenchant critique of nationalism. And here I will just give you the in a very brief, maybe it will be a travesty of the uh, complexity of the developments. If we go through Shumit Sarkar's Swadeshi movement in Bengal, we find this transition where this poet of Bengal who wrote such very the songs which enthused the people in anti-partition movement from 1907 onwards in a serialized manner in Probashi Potrika, Gora starts getting written, which was published in 1910, where for the first time Rabindranath is questioning the efficacy of this militant nationalism based on a particular religious kind of idea. And from then onwards, the distance between Rabindranath and the nationalist ideas, it starts growing, and ultimately it becomes a kind of chasm. So he developed, his ideas developed gradually, and he this the critique of nationalism we find expressed in a wonderful manner in an address which was given in Japan in 1915. And the title of this address is The Spirit of Japan. Now, Japan, as we know that it became a kind of icon for all the oppressed humanity of the East or the Orient. In 1905, Japan defeats Russia in the Russo-Japanese War, and Japan's victory, it actually became the victory of the oppressed population of the Orient. Uh, Japan, people from Japan, like Okakura and others, they have frequently come to Bengal. Uh, Bengal School of Art had some connections with Abanindranath Tagore and others. They had some connections with this Japanese school of thought, very nationalist one. And initially, the response of Rabindranath was very, you can say, sympathetic. He was in line with Okakura's view, but slowly, with his critique of nationalism growing much more strident, we find that in this essay, which was in this lecture, which was delivered in Japan, he actually talks about the dangers of this development in Japan. I will quote to some extent from this long essay. What is still more dangerous for Japan is not this imitation of the outer features of the West, but the acceptance of the motive force of the Western civilization as her own. Survival of the fittest, writ large at the entrance of her present day history, that is of Japan. The motto whose meaning is help yourself and never heed what it costs to others is the motto of the blind man. But those who can see know that men are so closely knit that when you strike others, the blow comes back to yourself. The moral law, man becomes the truer the more he realizes himself in others. In the past, we had foreign invasions, cruelty, and bloodshed, but they never touched the soul of the people deeply. But now, where the spirit of Western civilization prevails, the whole people is taught from the boyhood to foster hatreds and ambitions by all kinds of means. In another essay, Rabindranath actually, uh, in a dejected manner, talks about that when he went to Japan, he found that the trophies which the Japanese victorious army has won from the hapless Chinese adversaries, it was being shown and showcased in the Japanese schools to enthuse the children in the nationalist fervor. And this was the poet was aghast with this kind of thing. So his idea was that Japan, which was truly a very old Orient civilization, with the new kind of Western mode of thought, they have become successful. They have become industrialized. They can challenge the Western might, as they have done by defeating the Russian Empire. And yet, this by doing this, they have lost their soul. So he continues that there is always the natural temptation in us of wishing to pay back Europe in her own coin and return contempt for contempt. But that again would be to imitate Europe in one of her worst features. And this is a point on which we in the East have to acknowledge our guilt and our own and own that our sins has been as great, if not greater, when we insulted humanity by treating with utter disdain and cruelty men who belonged to a particular creed, color, and caste. Actually, by this reference or this sentence, Rabindranath and Periyar, his position or both of their positions, they come together. And Rabindranath, he is not just writing it in essay or prose form. In many of his poems in Bengali, he had time and again referred to this whom I am leaving behind in disdain. Actually, they are dragging us behind. যারে আমি পিছে ফেলি সে আমারে টানিবে যে পিছে. So he is referring to that, the inner dynamics or the inner problems. And it is really because, again, I come to the quotation, it is really because we are afraid of our own weakness, which allow itself to be overcome by the sight of power, that we try to substitute for it another weakness, which make itself blind to the glories of the West. So he is trying to delineate the challenges and the answers that Japan has taken, and he actually finds fault in the answer of Japan to the Western might. Emulating West, doing the same thing what West has done with us, won't result in the resolution of the crisis. This was his position, and because of this position, that Japan, which was initially very enthusiastic about Rabindranath, actually started building kind of barriers with Rabindranath. Then I come to directly to the second point. It is not only nationalism, but then the conflict and the racial conflict. And this essay was read in 1912 when Rabindranath was not yet an international figure. It is only after his getting the Nobel Prize, the first among the Asians, that he starts to become a kind of international figure. So this is prior to that one. And here, in this essay, a long one, I'm just giving some parts from in quotation. There, the poet, he is actually trying to draw our attention on the effect of the narrow and parochial nationalist ideas. So in this essay, kind of parenthesis, poet argues that the antipathy or suspicion about the alien is ingrained in human nature due to animal instincts. We are also animals, and animals, they fear the alien or the unknown thing, and they try to fight them out. So we also share some kind of such animal instincts. And in the early days of human civilization or the human history, the territorial limits enhanced this racial segregation because of transport blocks and others. But with science and technology, the segregation has gone, but the mentality has remained. So the question is how to confront this parochial ideas. There, he gives examples from the Indian history and the uniqueness of the Indian response, where he, according to the established the position, there was the theory of the Aryan invasion and the white people coming from Europe, and then the clash between the white colored people and the Indian Aborigines or the Dravidian civilization. All this has been
Sorry to interrupt, but could you kindly move towards concluding remarks because of the paucity of time?
right. So, in this race conflict, he is talking about that the races are widely separated in their geographical position and historical growth, and in their modes of thought and manners of expression have been brought near each other in closer relations. But we are not ready for that changed circumstances. Western people are cultivating an arrogant exclusiveness against all other races. Caste feeling is also running fearfully high. So, in this context, he is talking about the call of humanity. And here he is referring to the essence of religion in a very long essay, which was actually the Hibbert lecture in 1931, which is known as the religion of man. He has explicitly talked about his ideas about religion. But here, in a very short form, in the address at Parliament of Religion in 1937, he talks about the essence of religion. That is, Isha Vasham Idam Sarvam. Over and through it, all there is spread a mysterious spirit of harmony, continuously modulating rebellious elements into creative unity. And this is, he thinks, that the essence of religion, which is lost when it gets organized. He talks about sectarianism in this essay, but actually it is the organized religion that he is talking about. In a pertinent poem in Bengali, in Purishesh, at a very fag end of his life, he is talking about Dharmer beshe moho eshe jare dhare, andho se jon mare ar shudhu more, nastik সে যে পায় বিধাতার বর, ধার্মিকতার করে না আড়ম্বর, শ্রদ্ধা করিয়া জালে বুদ্ধির আলো, শাস্ত্রে মানে না, মানে মানুষের ভালো. So ultimately, I will conclude with this point, though there was another aspect. I am just
Sir, maybe we could come to it at the end of the session. We could come back to your point at the end of the session. Yeah, thank you.
So this is what he was talking about, and the whole gist we can find if we read the small essay that is Crisis in Civilization, that is the lecture that he delivered on his 80th birthday. With these words, I end. Rabindranath talked about the harmony, and he thought that this harmonious existence should be prevailing all over the world. It is not just confined within the boundaries of a particular territory or nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mukhopadhyay. I think three very pertinent points you have raised with regard to Rabindranath's thought process. I think it's sad to summarize all of this. Well, it's not a summary, but still to bring it down to a contemporary context by saying that these thoughts would be regarded anti-national today. But Rabindranath clearly was more complex thinker than that. But I think one of the important things to take away, and also what connects Rabindranath with Periyar, is his take on organized religion. I think that the need, what's very important is the need for both Rabindranath and for Periyar to ground the question of nationalism within a critique of organized religion. That how organized religion can actually spell doom to the idea of a diverse secular community. And for Periyar, how a certain kind of organized religion could stand in the way of justice and therefore in the way of fulfillment of the promise of a democratic nation, of a democratic national community. I think that's something which really unites the two of them. But we'll discuss more later, what conclusions we draw from their thoughts today and what we can do to popularize their thoughts. I think that's the most important part. But before that, we have Professor Shomik Dasgupta who will tell us more about Periyar's thought. Over to you, Shomik.
I would like to share, show some slides. So I'll try the sharing option now to see if it's working. Okay.
Yeah, it should be working. Please. Yeah, it's working.
Hold on. Mhm.
Yes.
It's visible, right?
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
like presentation playing thing. Okay.
You can go to the full screen, Professor.
Yeah, I'll
if
do
you
that.
want to
I'll do that. Please
Yeah.
don't call me professor, but okay.
Okay. Yeah, we
Okay.
can start.
Is this okay? Okay, all right. Should I switch on my video as well? Will that be necessary, or can I just do it with this? Would you like to see my face? Like, is my face important? I don't
I
think
think
so.
that will be helpful because
It will be helpful.
for
Yes.
people who have joined us on YouTube, it will be very nice of you to.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you,
Starting
sir.
video. I hope the room looks presentable. Okay. All right. First of all, I am a part of Jan Samvad, a pretty non-active member. So to be a more active member, I thought I would try to be part of this discussion session by talking about Periyar's thoughts on nationalism. But when I volunteered to do it, I don't know how the misconception was formed that I am a specialist on this subject. I am not. I have read a few books, that's all. I'll share with you all the books if you want. So let me begin. All right. So I hope you can see this slide. This slide is visible to you all. Hold on. I didn't there are people here in this conversation, I presume, who are not aware of who Periyar is. There might be people like that who do not know what Periyar is. Instead of putting up a biography of Periyar, I put up a few terms which people who are in favor of Periyar and people who are against Periyar, they have used in his case. I will not spend a lot of time unpacking all these words. They are for you to also discover later in time what they mean in Periyar's life. But some of the words which are definitely important for us here are rationalist. We look at that. We look at the idea of self-respect movement. We look at his work as an anti-caste campaigner. And we'll also see some of his things that he did as a social reformer. These are things we'll look at. We'll not go so much into his relations with the Justice Party or the contributions that his journal, Pudi Arasu, does in time. We'll not go into that in great details. Now, because I didn't give you a lot of backdrop regarding Periyar, there's only one part of Periyar's huge life and whatever he has done. There's one part that I wish to flag, which was his relationship with the Indian Congress and how it and it's not the only thing, it was one of the many things which sort of set him on the path of the self-respect movement and the work with the Justice Party and later with Dravida Kazhagam that he does in the politics of South India. Now, when we look at the relationship with Indian Congress, we see that this was a person who had thrown himself wholeheartedly into the non-cooperation movement in 1920. He really considered Gandhi as his role model in many ways. But this love and respect for Gandhi disappeared over a period of 5 years. and for several reasons. The prohibition of liquor policy, a policy for which he did an immense amount of picketing and he was also jailed. This prohibition of liquor policy was also something that Periyar himself didn't come up with. It was Periyar's wife, Kannamal, and Periyar's sister, Nangamal, who had met Gandhiji when Gandhiji had come to their house in Erode and talked to them about how liquor is causing immense problem for the women of the community because drunkard husbands are coming back and beating up their wives. So on listening to them, Gandhi also sort of became more clear that there needs to be, the British government needs to be urged to prohibit liquor consumption. And Periyar's wife, Periyar's sister, took the lead in picketing for these movements, and they landed up in jail with Periyar. So when you look at Periyar's life, you gradually see that Periyar, the person, is not so important as the people that Periyar worked with and the ideas that Periyar also sort of puts out into the public domain and how it's taken up over a period of time. We see that Periyar earns the title of Vaikom Virar for staging satyagrahas in front of the Mahadevi temple in Vaikom, present-day Kerala, where he was like agitating for the lower caste to enter the temple streets. He had also this was also another major point of contention within the Congress party when Periyar had protested the separate arrangements for dining of Brahmin and non-Brahmin students in the Sharma Devi Gurukulam, which was run by the Tamil Nadu Congress Committee and funded by VVS Iyer. He argued for 50% communal representation for non-Brahmins in public services and representative bodies. And after the Congress conference in Kanchipuram in 1925, his political agenda transformed completely because he saw that constantly his demand for the 50% communal representation was being rejected time and again by the Tamil Nadu Congress Party. He said, no God, no religion, no Gandhi, no Congress, and no Brahmins. This becomes his political agenda. By the way, am I speaking too fast? Should I go a little slower?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, all right. Now, what did he really mean by it? When we look at this, God, religion, Gandhi, and Congress and Brahmins stood in the way of different subordinate social groups from attaining free and equal citizenship in the nation in the making. This is Pandian sort of summarizing the entire thing up very neatly. And like when you look at the word subordinate social groups, he's talking about the non-Brahmins, he's talking about Shudras, Dalits, he's talking about women, all of them are drawn into that fold. And while I use the word Shudra and Dalit, these are not words that Shudra is a word that Periyar definitely uses, but more often he uses the word non-Brahmin / Dravidian more in his discourse. This is something that we see. When we look at Periyar's negotiations with the idea of Swaraj, there are certain quotations we must definitely go through. And I thought that this was something I was telling Akash, that Periyar was such a great polemic himself that if you look at some of his lines, you sort of get where he's getting at and how it still relates to us, many of these things. Is the Brahmin's rule Swarajya for the Parayan? Is the cat's rule Swarajya for the rat? Is the landlord's rule for the peasant? Is the owner's rule Swarajya for the worker? These lines by Periyar are also coming after Periyar has visited Soviet Russia. And Periyar has been really influenced by the models of national progress that he sees there. And he comes back and he raises these questions quite rightly. But as you can see, it's coming out in 48 in the journal Vidutalai. Then he also says at one point of time, with the next quotation that I've used, that after the going of the British, if the welfare of the oppressed people is passed on to the people in power, Periyar, we must remember, also belonged to a very wealthy business family himself. When he says to us, he means people like himself also to an extent. When he's saying that the welfare of the oppressed people is passed to us, it is nothing than handing over sheep to a butcher. This particular realization has not been proved wrong even now, that actually this has happened. Sheep has been handed to the butcher. The concept of husband-wife relationship has been one of master-slave relationship until women are liberated from such marriages, and from men our nation cannot attain freedom. This is also something that Periyar has been very clear. When Periyar imagines freedom very clearly, very intersectionally. That is his imagination. And so when India finally got independence on August 15th, he saw it as a day of mourning, right? Now, while Periyar broke away from Congress in 1925, Periyar started his work with the self-respect movement. And in the process of doing that, one of the major strategies of taking on his opponents was the act of denationalizing the past that he had done. Again, this is a terminology that Pandian uses, and also this is like which is why he's putting the denationalizing word within quotation marks to sort of say that what does it mean? Like, how is the nation tied to the past in a certain way? So first is the very idea that when we look at the elite mainstream nationalist movement that had happened, which we read about in our history books in the school level that we studied during the Congress, we were students during the Congress party in power. So the history of the freedom movement that we had read then constantly pointed out or pointed at a search for an authentic national self, which was set in a classical Indian past. And they like the arguments for this had come from several texts. The arguments for this had comes from Sanskrit epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata. They had come from Sanskrit plays like Shakuntala and other texts. Now, regarding those things, again, Periyar says something very clearly that you should realize that if all of you are workers, and this is when he is talking about the degradation of physical labor that has happened to the Dravidian society. And he's looking at that and he's saying that you realize that if all of you are workers, it is because you were all made Shudras according to the Varnashram Dharma. Sorry. Of Hindu religion, let that pass. If the workers are thought of as lowly people, it is because they were thought of as lowly people in the Hindu religion, Dharma. Now, Periyar's attacks on Hinduism, and this is something that Aloysius sir had pointed out way back in time when he had come for a Periyar birth anniversary celebration hosted by Babsa in the SA auditorium of JNU. He had said that like people sometimes think that Periyar is attacking attacking Hinduism or attacking Brahminic Hinduism or attacking Sanskrit and its ties with Brahminic Hinduism merely on the basis of some sketchy ideas of these things, which is not true. Aloysius was very clear about the fact that Periyar spent a huge amount of time in Kashi after a very peculiar incident, which was after the death of his child, I think. He left his family and he went to Kashi and he stayed there for a bit. And there, the engagement with the scholars, there, the experience on the streets of Kashi and the interactions with people really opened his mind to the various moral hypocrisies that are at the heart of the central texts behind Brahminic Hinduism. And he saw those through. Now, in order to denationalize the past, the other thing that he had done was to base his arguments on ancient Tamil texts, where he tries to show that the caste system, which degraded non-Brahmins, and the current marriage customs, which emphasize women's subordination, were alien to the Tamil past. But does that mean that he thought that the Tamil past was all brilliant and the Sanskritic past was all evil? Did he think that way? No, that was not the case. He also had contempt for the Tamil past in a major way. If like, even when we were introduced, like as students of English literature, we were introduced to the Tamil past in the Delhi University curriculum by reading this particular play called Silapadikaram. And Silapadikaram is an ancient Tamil text which we had read. And when we had read that text, we had got a conception of a polity, we had got a conception of a people which is very different from the conception of a people we see in a North India based Sanskritic play like Shakuntala. It was something very fundamentally different was going on in that play. But even then, there were problems in that play which, like, reading Periyar really opened my eyes to in many ways at that point of time. And at that point of time, that's also the point of time I get introduced to Periyar when I'm reading Silapadikaram. And because of the extreme, like, excellent person who taught us Silapadikaram in DU, we got introduced to Periyar's critique of Silapadikaram. And Silapadikaram is one of those pieces of classical Tamil literature which Periyar really questioned on the grounds of equality. And you look at this particular moment that in 1937, when the anti-Hindi agitation had begun, and the women leaders were talking about the great works of ancient Tamil women, this is what Periyar had to say, that it's more important that you talk about the present status of women and what can be done about achieving women's liberation instead of glorifying our godmothers like Ali Rani, Kannagi, and Madhavi. Like, this is something that we need to understand, that Periyar was a person who didn't get lost in books or writings like I am getting lost in while talking about him. He actually engaged with people. He worked with people. He didn't have much respect for the things that are there in several books which talk about a certain Tamil identity. For him, Tamil identity had to be informed by the current condition of people in 1937. And even for now, Periyar's message to us from the past is precisely this, that we should stop looking at the past. And as a Bengali, this is again a lesson to me. Like, we should come out of our leftist nostalgia in a certain way and operate from the present moment that we are operating in order to think of the political action that we are conceiving at every point of time. Aryan-Dravidian conflict is a conflict which had been going on since the Puranic age. These are like some of the quotations which sort of encapsulate a lot of things that Periyar gets at. Though we do not know about the Puranic age, we know that Buddhists had struggled to destroy the Aryan culture. Mughals, who had Islamic culture, which was opposed to the Hindu, that is Aryan culture, also tried to destroy Aryanism, but they didn't succeed. That is why Brahmins ridicule us. And let them ridicule us. We are not bothered. Strongly believe that our efforts will succeed. 200 years of British rule and 25 years of rationalist propaganda have reduced the hegemony of Aryan culture. This is something that needs to be tested on a national level now. This very hypothesis of Periyar, that has the hegemony of Aryan culture being reduced, or has the hegemony of Aryan culture, is it still in the ascendance, or like has it arrived in a way where in the multiple contestations that are happening of various ideologies, is the Aryan culture's ideology only one of them? Is it a minor one or is it a major one? I don't think the final we'd have the final sort of answer to that question yet. Now, from after the project of denationalizing in the past, Periyar sort of gives us a way forward, that how do we intervene and conceive of a new national? And he does it through the recovery of self-worth, or something which he calls a self-respect movement. He identifies very clearly that man today does not have self-confidence. He doesn't think that it is he who conducts himself. He doesn't believe that he is responsible for what he does. He has made a confusion of God, God's commands, God's philosophy, all of which were invented by man himself. And these lines are not only something that strike us very resonant right now just by looking at India. Even when I'm looking at Bangladesh and the way liberal Bengalis interpreted the way the student agitation or the July uprising in Bangladesh was going, this is a statement that some of us had also made at some level, that people there are not, like, possibly they don't know what is good for them. They have possibly made a confusion of these things, God, God's commands, God's philosophy, which are invented by man himself. Once again, I don't know on which high horse we are sitting and judging the student movement there, but we definitely try to understand where things are going, because we cannot conceive of the nationality of India without considering the nationality of everything that we are attached with alongside us. Periyar argues that reason, rationality, and science alone could restore their self-worth. What is known as rationality, Periyar very clearly says, will keep changing. What we think today as fit for reason may be rejected tomorrow as superstition. We ourselves will reject several things, even the sayings of those who are praised as great men. Similarly, the future generation may at a time say about me, there was a man of irrational thinking called Ramasamy. That is natural, a sign of change, a change of the times. Right now, in the deployment of a hegemonic Bengali identity within the state of Bengal, the present party in power is constantly deploying figures like Rabindranath, Vivekananda, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and tokenistically sometimes a birthday of Harichand Thakur, a birthday of Thakur Panchanan Burma. Little tokenistic gestures are going on here and there. The question is that when all these celebrations are done, the celebrations of these great people, first of all, we see that these are celebrations of great men that are done, and they are done by a statist injuncture that is sent to us through some kind of a notice that, oh, you have to celebrate the birthday of the Rabindranath, and we do it in front of students, trust me, for whom Rabindranath holds no value. They have distinctly no clue of who Rabindranath is. They have no sense. And their life is carrying on pretty fine without Rabindranath. This is the part that we need to understand. I know that there is a value of Rabindranath and his sayings. We need to talk about that value as a person belonging to professional academia. I will do that. But seriously, the question rises that where do these thinkers, how do we make it accessible, or how do we make it important for the people right now? The philosophy of self-respect movement is known to the world. Now we come to, and this is a crucial sort of like a tool through which to understand what self-respect movement is. The cause and effect theory is accepted by the wise world. The human being seeks reason for everything. He has begun to conduct research of nature. A life with ignorance is considered as a slave's life. Thus is the doctrine of the self-respect movement. Before doing anything, one should think whether it is right or wrong, see the causes, analyze things, do research, and respect the truths. This is what self-respect means. Freedom and self-respect are closely related, right? So हम कैसे सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट को इमेजिन कर रहे हैं? हम सोच रहे हैं कि सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए हमें पहले चीजों को जानना होगा, चीजों के बारे में जो हमें समझाया जा रहा है उसको ब्लाइंडली एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना है, उसके बारे में रिसर्च करना है, उसके कॉजेस समझने हैं, और उसके बाद हम जो सच समझ पा रहे हैं, क्योंकि सच एक नहीं होंगे, हर एक कम्युनिटी के लिए अलग अलग सच होंगे, हर एक कॉम के लिए अलग अलग सच होंगे, उन सारे सच को इकट्ठे करके हम सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट के प्रोजेक्ट शुरू कर सकते हैं। और अपना सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट होगा, फिर दूसरों को सेल्फ रेस्पेक्ट दे पाएंगे। ऐसे मूव से ये काम शुरू होगा। Those who are for freedom today are neglecting the self-respect and human dignity of man. Even right now, this is true. This is damn true right now. That even right now, like the misnomer that whenever we see the celebration of Independence Day, or when we see the celebration of whenever people talks about the value of the freedom struggle and other things, people talk about the fact that, oh, you know, those people in the freedom struggle, they did so much for us. What are you like? Shouldn't you remember them? Aren't they worthy of respect? But the question is that they fought for something called freedom. But where is that freedom even right now, when it neglects self-respect and human dignity of so many people of this country? It is the self-respect ideal that commands feelings of freedom. The freedom of the self-respect prevails strikingly, but the freedom of the real freedom lovers will not be clear even to himself, even if he understands it may be in only the case of a particular thing. This is again something which is similar to the 1968 student agitation injunction that nobody is free until everybody is free. That very idea, that you see Periyar talking about this way back in, I think this is coming out in 48 in a writing. Now, here I use another metaphor of Pandian sir, that is the idea of the national popular. And I'll tell you that Pandian sir takes this metaphor from Gramsci later on, with the quote of Gramsci that he uses. How does he think about reinscribing? He thinks about providing a new template or a new framework of nationalism through the aspect of the anti-Hindi agitation and reinscription of a new publics based on the language of Tamil. Periyar was very clear about the fact that a language can be acceptable to the nation if it is accessible to rational thought, rationality in the terms that we defined in the previous slide, and if the language enunciates equality and freedom. And this he saw was something that Sanskrit was not doing. He pointed out several words in Sanskrit, how those words invalidate the positions of lower castes and women within the social order that is imagined in Sanskritic texts. So he tried to refashion Tamil as an inclusive cultural field. And as I pointed out earlier, this refashioning didn't happen uncritically. He took offense with the activities of Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas. He took offense with ancient Tamil literature. He wanted a new kind of Tamil, a Tamil which is being written at that point of time, a Tamil which is talking about the experiences of people who were considered as non-Brahmins, who were considered as Shudras. Their experiences are being articulated in that new Tamil. That Tamil becomes the new sort of cultural field from which he will proceed. And this inclusivity was based on multiple contestations against different forms of oppression based on caste, gender, religion, region, and the anti-Hindi agitation of 1937. Now, where does the national popular idea come from? It comes from this particular quote of Gramsci from the prison notebooks. Then in Italy, the term national has been ideologically very restricted in meaning and does not in any case coincide with popular, because in Italy, the intellectuals are distant from the people, that is from the nation. And this is one of the criticisms that I think after the fall of the left front in Bengal, this is one of the things that was said in a lot of the social media, that we have the present power dispensation, the LDF has become completely disconnected from the people at the grassroots level. How can they remain in power? Many people had said it at that point of time. And this is there. The idea of, like, this is also something that, like, the intellectuals becoming distant from people is a project that Jan Samvad doesn't accept, and Jan Samvad tries to undo that to an extent. I believe that is one of the principles on which Jan Samvad is formed. They are tied instead to a caste tradition that has never been broken by a strong popular or national political movement from below. The current term national is connected in Italy to this intellectual and bookish tradition. Hence, the foolish and ultimately dangerous facility of calling anti-national whoever does not have this archaeological and moth-eaten conception of the country's interest. And this is something that we still see going on. That, strangely enough, the idea of the national is getting tied to certain figures and certain writings from the past. No one is trying to conceive of the idea of the national in the present, in the domain of the popular. Now, while I was working on this presentation, and this is me wrapping up my part of my presentation, while I was working on this particular project, I had the fortune of watching Shonstob's adaptation of Antigone by Joan Anouilh in Calcutta around, I think, the last week of May or the first week of June. The play is very interesting because the play, for those who do not know about Antigone, this is the story of a girl called Antigone who wants to marry her brother Polynicus, who has been killed in a civil war in the city-state of Thebes. The ruler of Thebes is Creon. The people who have been killed in the civil war are two brothers of Antigone. One is Eteocles and the other is Polynicus. Eteocles has been given proper burial by Creon and his sort of machinery in the state, but Polynicus has been left for consumption by the vultures. Antigone decides to go against the king's injunction that whoever tries to bury Polynicus will be subjected to death, goes against that injunction and buries Polynicus. At that point of time, Creon arrests Antigone, brings Antigone to his sort of decision room or conversation room, and tells Antigone that, Antigone, you are doing so much for Polynicus. I will tell you the real history of what Polynicus and Eteocles were. Polynicus and Eteocles, and he lists out what kind of degenerate, harmful people they were for the people of Thebes. He points it out. And at that point of time, Antigone is shocked. Antigone is wondering that, did I just bury someone who was harmful for the people of my nation? Did I just do that wrong? And at that point of time, Antigone is confused. And it's a very vital moment in the play, because this is something that it's a play. It is being done, we can understand it's being done keeping in mind what is going on in Gaza and the right of people to bury their dead, that is there. But also at that point of time, it is being done with Anouilh's vision that maybe the person you are going to bury is not a person who is exempt from your moral sort of questioning. So what do you do at that point of time? And Antigone's answer, which is Joan Anouilh's rewriting of Sophocles' great tragedy, Antigone. Joan Anouilh's answer is something like this, that Antigone is happy to have done what she has done, because this is for the first time in her life she has been able to do something that she wanted to do. All her life she had to do things which other people had told her to do. Today, after having done this task, and while doing this task, she was aware that the moment that she claims self-respect, she will be executed, she will be killed, and yet she will do it, and she will do it again and again if she comes back to life. This is something that is there in the play, and that play has been on my mind as I was engaging with this particular writing and with this idea of self-respect movement. Thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic presentations we have had. I mean, there's so much to talk about and not enough time, but we will certainly have a conversation. But before we move on to that, just in terms of, what do we do with all these ideas? And as Shomik said, that the very idea of Jan Samvad is to popularize these ideas, because there's a need to popularize these ideas. And a lot of, increasingly, we have we have generations of people who really don't know what this is all about, who have not been exposed to these ideas because these ideas are being thrown out of the syllabus. So on that note, I would like to mention that, the Jansamvad YouTube channel is going to be used as a means to do that. We can definitely consider creating short videos based on the presentations that have been had today. Maybe just 5-10 minutes short, or maybe YouTube shorts. We'll figure that out. It's still a new initiative, so we are still figuring out how best to popularize these ideas. But there's a strong chance that we will get back to both our speakers requesting maybe short videos that we can circulate with far more ease, and which can just hammer in 4 or 5 basic points on what is it that today's generation needs to know about Periyar, needs to know about Rabindranath Tagore. But beyond that, based on the points that have been made today, it will be nice to have a discussion. And if anybody wishes to come in, kindly raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
I want to speak. I don't know how to raise my hand. Where is it?
Aman, we'll come back to you at the end. We'll just take a few people have already messaged me, and we'll let them speak first, and we'll definitely hear you.
And just everybody who wants to speak, if they can switch on the video as well. Thank you.
Okay, I think there seems to be some technical glitch. I don't know, but Aman, maybe we could start with you in that case.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. What I was telling is that I don't need to switch on my video, no?
No, you don't need to.
Okay. The topic was on Pahalgam, no? So I want to first Pahalgam. It's okay. Like discursivity is required because I think we need to know our roots from where the struggle had sprouted and from where our national movement came. But still, when we are looking at politics, then we need to take some discursive stance too, like what is happening today around the world. What I'm talking about, even in the Indian context, for example, like what is happening in Pahalgam. What happened in Pahalgam was surely like heinous, but I want to also mention some points. Like first of all, like there are some facts that first of all, like a few weeks back ago, the military general of Pakistan had called Hamas's chiefs at his place, and also Hamas's chiefs were called in Pakistan. And after some time, what happened was that in India, Pahalgam, this attack took place, and also like the elite terrorists in Pakistan were given state funeral. The guy
Aman,
robbed.
sorry to interject once. I think, we are getting little off the track, but the discussion wasn't exactly on Pahalgam. It was more on the larger issues of war and peace and, reflecting Rabindranath and Periyar and their
Okay,
reflections.
that was
So
the
if you
topic.
have something to contribute on that, it will be.
Yeah. Even I'll come to it. I'll just take just 30 seconds on the fact so that I'll get again below. Like I'll try to engage with the like ideas on nationalism and everything like that we had.
Yeah, maybe
But
maybe if you can wrap up in a minute because, we are already past time. Yeah.
okay,
Thank
no
you.
problem, no problem. Just add me in the group that you have so that I'll share some information over there. Like I share at many places informations.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yeah. I was
Yeah, I
just
will maybe we can extend, this conversation in the group which we have rather than now, like because
yeah.
I think it's past time, so I
Okay,
think it'll
okay.
be better. Yeah.
Then I like to read that I'll like to tell you about about what ideas about the idea of nationalism that Rabindranath Tagore that had. like about our country. Like he was talking about not just like our nation uh, uh, um, uh, in the anti-national. Like he was talking about nation by telling that we can go beyond nations only if possible through like what I- what basically I am trying to say is that what our country is seeing, what every other country is seeing, is like we are seeing lack of consciousness, not lack of like consciousness against these negative trends like racism, casteism, religious chauvinism, and because of it, the working classes are brought to a backdrop. So what is happening is like the working classes, they are not they don't understand themselves as a working class or like something like that. But because of the cultural negativity that is present in our times, what is happening that they are taking themselves as something. Uh, uh, they're taking like things like political power and like all of those things into to just subvert it for their
Yeah.
own benefits in the shorter duration. And what is happening is that, and we need to counter that too. And what
Yeah.
is happening below? Yes.
That's great. Yeah.
Could you stop now?
Yes, that would be great because the paucity of time, because we're planning to finish on 8:30. So thank you so much, Aman, for your valuable points, and we will
Yes.
extend this conversation. We will add you to the group. It's okay.
Yes.
So
Just to pose any questions to the speakers.
anybody has any other questions for the speakers? If they can, just post it right now, or they can ask. No, I think that's all. So I will go ahead with the thank you note, and we can then close it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for everybody who has basically come today and spend their evening with us. It was fantastic having both the speakers, Professor Shobik and Professor Shomik. And I know Professor Shomik might have a problem with calling me professor, but I am going to say that out of respect. But it was an extensively well presented set of ideas with uh, correct citations and following the literature. In the era of fake news being so rampant, I think it's very difficult to find the source. And you both were kind enough to actually specifically mention, to validate and then basically reflect on that. Some of the key pointers, I think, and I would like to take the citation from Shomik, like, we are at the extreme ends right now, as Rabindranath probably has at some point said that the loss of faith on humanity is the biggest bane which can happen. I'm just not quoting him, but this is what he has meant, as Professor Shovik said. And as Shomik was saying, that at this point of time we probably need to get out of that space. And as also as a Bengali, I think from that nostalgia of past, and maybe get down and get our hands more dirty to understand the situation and the issues and the precarity of the issues which are around us. And it's at a global scale, you know, be it poverty, be it hunger, be it the Israel-Hamas war, be it the Russia-Ukraine war. Every day we switch on the news, there is something more difficult to handle, something which really pains us. But at the same time, I think we have that understanding that what can we do. I believe that is where this base idea of such a space is coined, such a space comes up, so that we can come together, ideate, think, and propagate more information towards the right situations, towards the right cause, with more conviction outside. And with that note, I finally thank you so much for everybody, and I hope that this is one of the beginnings of a better space, and a space for all of us to communicate and interact.
हाँ
And
इतनी जाओ पर
Professor
छोड़ दो
Shovik,
या
no problem. So with that note, thank you so much, everybody. Yes, the situations outside, politically, economically, socially, are very challenging for most of us, for all of us who come with the progressive thought of coming together to do something about it. It is getting even more challenging, and hence the idea of creating such a space. But yes, there's definitely hope, and probably losing hope is not going to be an option. And we shan't lose hope, any of us, and that's why the space is here. And I look forward to having more such conversations and discussions with you and interact with all of you. If anyone has anything else to add, Tushar, Abdul, Akash. Yeah. So yes, thank you so much. And now I would close this meeting. Thank you all for everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.